Alrighty, guys, here we go. This is the part where the race starts. So we went through all of our preparations. Hello. Hello. This is where the race starts. We've gone through all of our preparation. It's time to put it into motion. And so we head north, go up to Port Townsend, do a little delivery up there, which we talked about, losing the propeller blade. Just do a quick talk about the ruckus up there. It's really fun. If you're not a participant, show up, go to the ruckus. It's the day before the race. I mean, Randy was signing autographs. People were crawling all over the boat, asking questions. Their babies running around. It was great. It was a good time. So here we go. Leg one, it's about, we started at 4 in the morning. We woke up. The race starts at 6 a.m. It's pretty windy getting out of the harbor there. Basically, we're in pedal drive to get out of there. We don't have any assistance. As we get out, there's a breakwater that's protecting you completely from the southerly. And as we turn left, I mean, you can see how the holes, there's nothing in the water up forward. So as we turn, you know, we're facing due east. The wind catches our holes and basically wants to push us right into the beach immediately. We tried our best to get out of there. Fortunately, we were able to get off. I mean, we never hit anything, but got the sails up, and basically, Randy lost his boots, and I don't know what happened, but Randy yelled at us, "Guys, I lost my boot. We got to go back." We're like, no. We just got the sails up. We're starting in 5 minutes. There's no way we're going back.
So what happened was we had to pedal out, and to pedal out you had to wear the bike shoes. Then you had to, but then I wasn't going to race in the bike shoes. I needed to switch into my sea boots. And as I was doing that and trying to sail the boat, I dropped the boot into the water. And yeah, I wanted my boot back. That's size 14. They're hard to find. But yeah, we had to sacrifice that to King Neptune. But I really thought the race was over before it even started. I mean, we pedal just fine out of Port Townsend, you know, right into a headwind and against the lee shore, and we just barely made it off with the boat intact. But then we fortunately managed to nail the start and take the first one. Team Hodge. Team Hodge was one of our inspirations. He rocked it, and it was really cool, the mix of boats and characters.
You sailed to Alaska with what on your feet?
So that was just to Victoria. That was the first leg to Victoria, and in Victoria, they do, but it was hard to find a size 14. I think I went on Amazon and had the boots overnight because I couldn't find them at the shop there.
Yeah, so first to finish in Victoria, which is great. We're like, sweet, we get to ring the bell first, and then they shove us in the back. So we're all the way back at the dock, the worst position for the next start, for the real, the full length of the race. So this is leg 2, race day. We basically, after our little, not mishap, but issues getting out of Port Townsend, we were really concerned about getting out of Victoria. We talked about the propellers for quite a long time, and finally, I think we decided a more moderate, low RPM, or high RPM.
Low pitch.
Yeah, low pitch. So it wouldn't have a high, or as much of a high-end top speed, but it has more torque to get us out of any sort of wind headwind conditions. Yeah, so it's a Le Mans start. Everybody is up on the breakwater, the wall above the marina. All the participants, they sound the horn, and all of us rush down to our boats, hop on them, push off, start pedaling, rowing, whatever it is. And for us, we walk down. We're like, oh, it's going to be a while before we get out of here, so we walk down. And sure enough, we had all the dock lines on slip knots, but somehow we got a dock line kind of mixed up and wrapped a couple times around one of the bollards there, and we couldn't get it untied. And we look up, and everybody's gone. They're like, "Oh, we better put it in high gear." So yeah, there we go. We start racing. Leg one. Going up Paro Straits. This is our first kind of part. Yeah, that's a face mask. Keep you out of the sun. But this is us in the Straits of Georgia, kind of at dusk time. Basically, we went through Active Pass, made our way out there, just on a long port board going towards the mainland right now. Fairly calm sea.
Yeah.
You know, after maybe the first hour, maybe hour and a half, we lost sight of everybody. Took a left-hand turn, and that was it. But yeah, you can see, I mean, the boat's fairly stable in these conditions. Everyone's in good nature, good humor. Everything's working well. Yeah, the pedal drive here, you can see it tucked up. We have a nice cover for that so at night you don't fall through or anything. See the mast is rotated. So here we go over the navigation. Got our handhelds here, which proved to be, they're very difficult to read and get used to, and we basically went straight to our cell phones after the first day using Navionics, which you download all your charts, all the information's there. To get our routes on the Navionics was extremely difficult. David found a workthrough where we went to the West Marine down in Inner Bay that had a model of a plot charter that did wireless communication. So he's able to bring an SD card, put it on that plot charter, and wirelessly send it to all of our cell phones. So,
How do you keep your equipment charged?
we had portable battery chargers. We carried, I think, 14 and used 3. Each of us had a cell phone that had plenty of batteries, so basically we were rotating through our phones.
And we looked at doing a solar system, and it just wasn't worth it, so we just had these little battery packs, and even those, yeah, like Colin said, way more than we needed. We had 3 of these Garmin handhelds, and they had charts on them, but like Colin said, you couldn't read them. The Navionics were great, but the problem with the Navionics is as soon as the screen got wet, then you couldn't navigate on the cell phone screen. So there were a couple moments when it was hairy, because when it was really windy, you couldn't really use the Navionics on the smartphone because the screens were wet. But then on the Garmin, the resolution was so poor, then you couldn't really read the charts effectively. We had paper charts, but everything was so wet and so windy that they were a big soggy mess. One of the other issues we ran into, we had these really nice LED, like hockey puck lights, and I can't remember the manufacturer, but they're great for a boat that has no electrical system.
Was Navisafe or?
Yes, Navisafe,
Yeah.
Thank you. They're a great product, but the problem is they were down at our eye level, and they were so bright that they would kill our night vision. And so there were a number of times where we had to run. We felt it was safer for us to run dark and be able to see than to have the nav lights on. Not a great situation to be in, but wasn't like we could pull over and wire something different.
Ron, was there a tool or a system or a product that you wish you had on board after the fact that all things being equal, that you would put on board?
All things being equal, personally,
All things are never equal.
the conditions for what we had planned for before we even pushed off the dock were perfect and almost identical to the route that we had pre-planned to follow. So I felt that, honestly, I wouldn't have changed anything. The preparation was there, and it worked out really well for us.
The one thing that I would definitely, well, I can think of 2 things that I would have done differently, though. I mean, I think the preparation really did work out well. But we had this bivy sack that we moved back and forth. And if we could have, we should have built a little canvas pod center of the boat. And that way somebody could have slept through the tacks. And in light wind, it would have been fine to have someone in the center of the boat. They didn't have to be on the racks. But instead, when we tried to sleep in the center of the boat with the main sweeping the deck and the main sheet and all the lines, you really couldn't sleep centerline. The other thing was we had the two-person pedal drive, and that worked really well, except you couldn't steer the boat into a headwind. So we would have been better off with two pedal drives, one-person pedal drives, one on each side. Would have added 20, 25 pounds to what we were carrying, so I'm still not sure we would have made that choice. But we would have been able to control, basically vector the boat when pedaling into a headwind. Those are two changes that I would have liked.
Okay, so day 2, each day starts around noon because we started about that time. So I believe it was 10 a.m. that we got to Campbell River, which is right at the tide change. I don't think any of these photos are depicting that, but basically when we came through Seymour Narrows, it was us and 3 other cruising sailboats that were just starting their motor through. It was complete slack tide, flat, calm water. Everything was like exactly how we had hoped it would be. It worked out that way. And then as we got further into Johnstone Straits, the breeze started to build. I like to equate Johnstone Strait. It's not necessarily a perfect equation, but it reminds me of what the gorge is like. Very narrow waterway with huge mountains or hillsides going up either side. A lot more green there here in Johnstone Straits. And there's a purse seiner motoring while we were going up. They're probably doing 10 to 12 knots, and we were able to stay with them tacking back and forth, which was proving to us that our VMG was about that. As we got further north in the Queen Charlotte Sound, I mean, the water was turquoise blue. The islands were these amazing green islands with sandy beaches and places that we wish we could have pulled over, but that wasn't the point of this trip, so we kept our minds elsewhere. The start of the race. Yeah. Yeah.
We're going up the straight. Going straight into about 25 knots. Current finally shifted.
So this was Facebook Live.
Technology.
Pretty good for not a whole lot of cleaning.
So I think we're doing 12 over the ground and probably 14 through the water at this point. I mean, the boat turns what I like to call is like a pod racer from Star Wars. The thing is just lit up. Every single turn of the tiller, your body is getting thrown around. I mean, you're going Mach speeds upwind, and just, if you watch some of the other videos that Race Alaska put up, you'll see us launching off waves. I mean, it's acrobatic, it's crazy, but it's something that also was of concern while we were sailing, for watching the rig and making sure we weren't pushing too hard going through these conditions.
So, like Colin was saying, when we got to Seymour Narrows, we couldn't have timed it any better. I mean, people thought it was luck. We just nailed it right at slack tide, and we thought this is perfect because not only was it slack tide, but it was slack tide and it was changing where we were going to have a 4-knot current pushing us up the strait. We thought, this is fantastic. I mean, and the thing that I didn't realize is having that 4-knot current pushing us up the strait, but it was a 4-knot current against a 30-knot gusting closer to 40-knot wind against it. And these 6-foot, basically square waves were stacking up. And I have never in my life so badly wanted the current to turn against me as in time where I was nervous, and I thought, okay, this is where we're going to lose the rig. And constantly I was looking at the charts saying, okay, is this where we need to drop the main, turn around, and just run under bare poles to find cover? We stuck it out and we kept the rig up until a couple months later when I dropped it in San Francisco. But we made it through. It was pretty exciting.
Can you explain what you mean about losing the rig for those of us who have been like so tired?
You don't want to experience it. It's when you run into a severe gravity storm and it starts raining carbon fiber bits on your head. That's what I mean by losing the rig. So by day 3, I'm exhausted, and it's getting hard to concentrate. I mean, this is where we're almost sailing in circles outside of Bella Bella, but it is spectacularly beautiful. And one of the most amazing pleasures of this boat is doing 7-8 knots of boat speed in almost glassy conditions. And this was just fine. And a lot of people said, oh my God, Mad Dog Racing, they got lucky, they had amazing wind all the way through, and then once they finished it shut off and everybody had to row. And that really wasn't the case. We had a ton of light air, and thank God we did, because that's when we could rest. And so this was one of the peaceful moments where there was just enough wind to sail, and we're still going 6 or 7 knots. But you can see it's pretty glassy, and there's dolphins with us, and we saw orcas this day. And despite the exhaustion, it was a pretty beautiful and exciting place to be. So the last day, the wind, we've been going upwind or no wind the entire race, and we finally get some breeze.
Yeah, this is where we start to turn it on. I think Randy was saying, you could see in that sleeping video from earlier, but the last 6 hours is when we were running here with the Code Zero up doing 20 knots, and I think we did over 100 miles for those last 6 hours. So that's basically what stamped everything and got us a chance to get in to catch a can so fast to be able to kind of just top off the race. I mean, you'll see as we get the camera turned around, but you'll see it in the faces. We're all, I guess we're in zombies right there, holding on.
So by this point, to sail the boat fast, I mean, we'd already been at this for a couple hours in the dark. And to sail the boat fast downwind, you have to sail with the hull flying. But it's like balancing, it's an inverted pendulum problem, where you're balancing a broomstick in your hand. And if you let it fall one way, well, you go slow. If you let it fall the other way, you go swimming. And so it takes a lot of concentration, under the best of circumstances, to fly the hull and make good VMG downwind. But in the dark, when you're exhausted, it was incredibly difficult. And I was only good for maybe 20, 30 minutes at a time, and then I'd have to hand the helm off to Colin or Ian. And so that's how it was for the last, probably 10 or 12 hours of the race. Just 30-minute stints at the helm, because that was about all you could concentrate for without sheer exhaustion. So at this point, there's not a lot of conversation on the boat. We're pretty stoked to be going fast, to be going downwind, to be on the home stretch, but we are tired.
Were you aware of your position the whole time?
Yeah, most of the time, definitely.
Stuck on a boat.
But that wasn't making our decisions for us. I mean, at this point, we stopped cooking food. Like, we knew we were close, and we just really wanted to get there. We just conserved as much energy as possible. I mean, we were eating bars. We had tons of dried food to eat. But we were looking at it where, as long as we just have all of our energy focused on the finish, we can get there, and we want to be under 4 days. That's really what we wanted. Wow. So here's the finish. This is just showing how we docked the boat. We're pretty proud of this moment because we watched a few other boats come in and we had zero assistance. Just kind of.
You didn't want to crash into the dock with everybody looking.
Just a little leisurely docking here.
But it felt good to stick the landing.
And then we had to remind Randy to go ring the bell. Yeah, they were ready. I think we were kind of confused at that point because we all got back on the boat. It was a weird experience, but yeah.
That was beer, not champagne.
Alaskan beer. It's good stuff. Definitely. Yeah, we had dehydrate food, so we had a jet boil to boil the water, and then we poured in the packets, let them cook through, and then we would go ahead and eat them. I mean, the hardest part, honestly, was making instant coffee and tea, which are some of the more important parts. But the mugs we decided to buy, I don't know who we is, but we decided to buy, weren't like nice travel thermos mugs. They were just like those REI camping ones that are plastic and flimsy and have like the little handle that comes off of it. And
They were lightweight.
but everything got cold in like 5 minutes. You'd pour half of it out before you could actually drink it. So yeah, this is Ketchikan. It was amazing up there because all the teams were showing up right after us.
How long after you?
I think it was
Days.
yeah, 18 to 20 hours. Jungle Kitty, Mama Tried. I mean, we had everyone showing up. We had the Rotary Club Ducks. They were there. That was nice. Bigger Shipyard was also sponsored. They gave us a tour of their shipyard. This is Ketchikan Yacht Club, much like this yacht club. It's a floating yacht club. Yeah, and the fish house is where we finished and had basically every meal. Yeah, it was amazing. So, lessons learned.
Yeah, so I mean, this was an incredible experience, and I mean the biggest lesson learned was that the general strategy worked, and it was all in the preparation, and the preparation paid off. We put a huge this was almost a 12-month lead up to do this race. A huge amount of engineering and rigging and sail making and testing and trialing and doing overnight races, figuring out what worked, what didn't work. And that general strategy was the biggest lesson, that's how to go at this thing if we want to win. There were some small things like, we didn't use nearly as much electricity as we thought we were going to. We had tons and tons of extra food left. We had more water than we needed. And it really was a light air upwind race. And so under different circumstances, this boat could do it at least a day faster. And I don't think it would do it much slower.
Randy, how many days were you planning for? Batteries?
We had what we thought was 6 days of food, and we probably had 8 days of food. It was much harder to eat than we thought. Using the jet boil was fine, but you couldn't really do it when you were really sending it. We had a lot of bars, but not not nearly as many of the hot meals as we thought. We had these 5-hour energies and well, we had lots of tea and coffee that we thought would, be our caffeine source and help us stay awake, but it was so hard to prepare that, we should have had more shock blocks and 5-hour energy, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it really came down to preparation. That was the number one lesson learned, and I think the biggest success for us for this race.
What's a 5-hour energy?
It's just a caffeine drink. It's like
Little shot bottle thing.
I mean, just the hardest thing for
Trucker
us in this
speed.
race was staying awake and was dealing with the lack of sleep. So that's our presentation, and we thank you all for coming. Thanks so much, and yeah, we're really happy to answer your questions.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
In the blue.
Did you have any medical issues that needed to be addressed, and how did you deal with those?
Nobody had prior medical issues. We had antibiotics. We had a prescription eye drop for salt water and eye infections. We had some painkillers. Yeah. We did. That's where we did. Yeah, we got some prescriptions. We consulted a doctor to make sure that we had things on board that you can't normally get over the counter.
Kind of a tax question, but $10,000 is nailed to a tree. How did you divvy it up?
I think no, it was even, and I think Randy got the extra $1 or $100.
And my share was just enough to ship the boat home.
Speaking of shipping the boat home, how'd you get it from Ketchikan back to wherever?
Yeah, I guess we didn't put any photos of that up, but we had a 40-foot container, so the boat can break apart fairly easily. You don't need a crane or anything. The mast comes down on its own using the boom, which we had people in the container. The hard part was that they didn't have a way to take the container off the flatbed up there once they took it off of the barge. So to get the holes into the container, we had to ask some help from some other competitors, lift it up about 4 feet, and then shove them in.
Who's next?
So we got the boat home, back to San Francisco, put it back together again, and we did the Ronstand Bridge to Bridge race, which was from the Golden Gate Bridge to the Bay Bridge, and I think we did it in, 18 minutes? So that was fun. And then we put the crew back together again for the Rolex Big Boat Series, and that's where we ran into the gravity storm that took the rig. So the boat is kind of broken and in pieces tomorrow, and so Zoe and I and Colin we're test sailing Mama Tried tomorrow. So we'll see what's next. But the Marstrom is in kind of sad shape at the moment.
So are there are there any conditions in which this race will not be won by a multi-hull? Will a monohull or a human-powered craft ever win this race?
I mean, the second place boat was a monohull, and it beat every single trimaran out there. So they have their days too, but I think
Not as many.
I think the catamaran is kind of to a more extreme than a trimaran, weight-wise, stability-wise, power-wise. I think it's hard to beat a catamaran.
I think there's no way for a rowboat or kayak to win this race, even in the lightest gear on record. Because what people don't understand is a boat like this, in 2 knots of wind, you're going faster than most people can row. Certainly faster than most people can row on a sustained basis. And even in 0 knots of wind, in 2 knots of current, you have 2 knots of wind. So I don't see human propulsion as being a winning strategy here.
Yes. It's the best race out there.
This was one of the greatest experiences of my life. It was incredible. And I would encourage anyone considering it to do it, but to do the preparation and then to do it.
Completely. I mean, putting this presentation together made me relive a lot of the moments. And, I was up 1 in the morning, giddy as all, just looking through all the photos and watching videos. It's a great race.
I assume you already met him, you know, we got the winner of the very first R2AK here.
Definitely.
Okay.
Well, I'm just curious how many other people are in the room that have done the R2AK.
Man,
Yeah.
wow! Congrats, guys!
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, did you feel you made the optimum trade-off between weight savings and maintaining crew effectiveness?
I think if we had it fourth, we would, but this boat, again, like Randy had talked about, it's, designed and built to a certain constraint of weight, and, you can't carry,
That'll marry you.
you need to carry so much food and water that it just doesn't work out to have another guy.
It would have been great to have an extra hand, but yes, there's no way. For the gentleman that asked about how we got home, this is the boat packed up in its container.
Would you campaign this boat again on a multi-day race?
Yeah, for sure. Yes. Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. But that is the one thing that I would do different is have that central pod so that somebody could sleep without having to move every time. Because any multi-day race that this boat does would be a coastal race, an inshore race. You wouldn't take the boat offshore. And the thought has crossed my mind. But in an inshore race, there's going to be a ton of maneuvering, so you have to have some way to sleep without having to move without the off-watch person having to move every tack. We didn't have that.
So when the race ended, how long did it take you to go to bed, and then how long did you sleep for?
We went up to our room probably an hour. No, we had breakfast. We finished around 7 a.m. Went up to the room, and I think we were glued to our phones and computers for about 4 hours, and maybe got like an hour of rest, and then went right back down, and that's it.
My wife surprised me at the finish. We've got 3 kids, and I did not expect to see her in Ketchikan. So she surprised me at the finish. It was at 7 a.m. And it's not very often that the two of us have. She only had tickets for I think 2 days. It's not very often we have 2 days without kids. So I wanted to go back to the hotel and sleep so bad. But here she was, and there were no kids, and we were in Alaska. So we got off the boat and we went for a hike. Around this beautiful little lake, and we had a taxi driver that took us there, and we told him when to pick us up. He picked us up, and he was a really chatty guy, wanted to tell us all about Ketchikan, and I fell asleep in the taxi back to the hotel. I was not with Colin and Ian on Facebook when we got back. Then I fell asleep and probably slept, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours, and she woke me up for dinner. She felt bad, but she knew I wanted to join the party for dinner.
Well, moved to the catamaran. What have you guys done in the capsizing phase?
So we had looked at doing a canting rig, and if we had a canting rig, it was conceivably possible to drop the rig to leeward and then have the boat self-right, but then you'd have to re-secure the rig. And a system like that you'd have to test to actually believe it would work, but I didn't want to purposely capsize the boat. So we didn't do the canting rig. I did think that in a capsized situation we could conceivably cut the windward shrouds and have the boat self-right that way, and then we'd have the pedal drive. And we'd have the pedal drive without the windage of the rig. But presumably if we capsized, that means there was wind, in which case the pedal drive was going to be useless. So the basic strategy was, if the boat capsized, stay with the boat and you know, hit the rescue me button. We were carrying an anchor and we were carrying a sea anchor. So the sea anchor would park the boat fairly well. But yeah, it was basically cut the rig, hope that the boat self-righted, deploy the sea anchor, and wait for some opportunity to pedal back. But obviously we had radios and emergency beacons.
What was your happiest moment and what was your darkest time?
And for me, there were a couple moments. When we were flying up Johnston Strait, and people have probably seen the R2AK video, some of the helicopter videos. We're literally flying from wave to wave. I thought there was a good chance we'd lose the rig there, and that if we lost the rig, we'd lose the boat up on the rocks. So that was pretty hairy. And then, you know, Dixon entrance was exhilarating, and it was incredible just, you know, flying into Alaska doing 20 knots. But I was so tired. And just trying to concentrate, not let the guys down, not flip the boat, keep going fast, but hadn't had any sleep. And then my wife surprising me at the entrance. That was also a high point.
Yeah, I'd say probably the scariest moment for me was the Queen Charlotte Islands. As me and Ian were on watch, there's, you know, maybe 3 or 4 knots of breeze. Randy was sleeping or trying to sleep, and these islands have a lot of homes on them with docks and lights. And you know, I had a really long shift we all stayed up going through Johnstone Strait, and then I went straight on to a 6-hour shift. And it was during that shift that I just couldn't tell how far away those lights were. And I didn't have my phone to look at because I was driving, and I swore that I was going to run it right into one of those docks or right into ground. And I was in Ian's ear for like 5 minutes, like, hey man, what's in front of me? Like, what is it? And you know, maybe for a half hour I was freaking out about it. Eventually I figured out where I was and got reoriented, but that was a moment that definitely had me on edge. Yeah, coming up the Straits of Georgia, we ran into a log, and that was also a scary moment. I mean, the hole dug down, we didn't know what it was, we never saw what it was. We weren't able to we didn't see anything when we went up there. We slowed the boat down. Afterwards, we found that there's considerable damage. Luckily, I don't think there's any water ingress. But yeah, one of my happiest moments, of course, my mom showing up, surprising me as well. One of the cooler parts about the trip was just getting away. And that night that we had a tough time coming out there in Hecate Straits, it was amazing. It was light air, and you looked to the south, and there were stars all the way to the horizon. You couldn't tell. You felt like you're out in the middle of the universe. There's just stars everywhere. And you look to the north, and then there's just this slight line of light, the dust that the sun never went away. So that was a really cool moment as well. All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thanks for coming lots of fun things coming up in March. On March 9th, Wendy Hinman, you may know, is a local author and a member of the club, and is going to be talking about her new book coming out, which is called Sea Trials, and it's about her husband's youthful adventures with his family sailing around the world after when they got shipwrecked, and how they fixed their boat. And it should be a really fun story if you haven't already heard about it. And if you're a member of the club, just go on the website. There's always something going on at the club Thursday and Friday nights, and racing starts
March 4th.
March 4th. There you go, March 4th.
Don't forget to sign up for Center Sound.
Oh, and I'll do the pitch here for cruising. We're doing a casual class for Center Sound, right?
Yep.
Is it all non-flying sails?
No, it doesn't have to be non-flying
Okay.
sails, so
Both.
whatever you want. AFS, NCS, and PS, whatever you want. I will give you a number.
And that will give you your rating.
I will give you a number and you can come out and rock it. So let's make sure. It would be awesome if we could get 10 casual class sailors out there. It would rock everybody's world. Please come out. I will help you. Contact information is on the site.
If you have any questions, you can talk to Matt, or you can talk to Mike McGuane in the back. Liesel can help you. No, Mike? So thanks for coming tonight. I hope to see you again soon.